In this episode of CARPe Diem,
Self-care incorporates the mind, body, and spirit. Guest Dr. Amani, Dr. Pawa, nutritionist Jollia, and trainer Alex give us crucial information on healthy living.
CARPe Diem, seizing the day for Canadians as we age.
Welcome. On today's episode, we talk to two doctors, a nutritionist, and a fitness expert who are going to give us tips on living our best life. My first guest is Dr. Amani, who has an integrated approach to medicine. She says that the mind, body, and spirit are all interconnected.
Our endocrine secretion, our glands are connected to our mood, are connected to our emotions, are connected to our blood pressure, is connected to our pain, is connected to our sleep, is connected to what we eat. It's all one. It's connected to how we feel about our role in the world, what we feel our purpose is, how we live out our purpose, our connections with other people. It's all one. And I think that's been the biggest aha discovery for me as a person and as a physician is that we are all one, and how do we treat ourselves as one, including that we are all one also as people, right, in our connections to each other, and also one with the planet and all life, animals, all plants, everything. So it's this unity, consciousness, with if you want to call it, that we are all one internally, our mind, body, spirit. We're all connected between each other, and also all life on earth, and how to go about living our life that way.
Tell me about the mind-body connection. Let's start with those two.
So we know that our thoughts manifest reality. So that's the mind, right? It's where thinking is occurring. It's how we're processing the world. It's where we experience stress is in the mind, and there's also in emotions. And that has a direct impact on our physiology, right? At the cellular level. So the thoughts that we think and the feelings that we have about ourselves, about our life experiences, about what's happening, impacts our body, the manifestation of our body at the cellular level. And that's where we know that, you know, what we're taking into our mind, what we're exposing ourselves to, is then going to be translated into you know, how our body's responding. So we know that stress, for example, will increase the fight or flight response if we have nothing to counteract it. And that in of itself will jack up our blood pressure, will jack up our heart rate, will jack up our blood sugar, will create a feeling of anxiety. And so we have to go about the problems that we're experiencing physically, considering that it's not going to take a pill or one treatment to address that. We have to look at how do we then address our thoughts and feelings in a very holistic way, because so many things interplay in impacting them.
Our thoughts have a deep impact on our bodies at the cellular level. Let's bring in Dr. Pawa and ask her, how does being mindful improve our health?
Be very aware of what thoughts and how you're reacting. You have a choice. You can either react or respond. If you react, you're not thinking about it. That's your reflex. You don't have to think about fear. It's automatic. But if you can try to respond means take a deliberate, measured, thoughtful, planful approach to how you want to show up. And then you make good choices about the food you eat, about the habits, about who you listen to, what words you speak, and how you show up as a mother, as an employee. You will make better decisions if you're responsive and responsible and not reactive.
And there we have it. Let's be aware of our fight or flight response and learn how to manage our stress better. When we come back, we'll give more self-care tips through diet.
Still ahead on CARPe Diem.
So sprouts and legumes are actually filled with minerals, packed with fiber and protein.
seizing the day for Canadians as we age.
Welcome back. Plant-based diets have become very popular in recent years, and I wanted to know why. So I asked Dr. Amani.
So the more vegetarian that you can be, that's the best anti-inflammatory. Inflammation is considered the cause of all disease now. So highest vibration food is primarily vegetarian. Now, you can have animal protein, but if you're having it every day right now, cut it down to every other day. If you're having it every other day, cut it down. So we want to primarily not be a vegetarian or a vegan and force yourself to do that because you've heard it's good for you, but cut it down to at least 80% of the time. So what are healthy non-animal sources of protein? Legumes, so lentils, beans, chickpeas, that whole family.
So legumes are healthy. Why? And how do we cook them properly? Nutritionist Jollia explains.
So sprouts and legumes are actually filled with minerals, packed with fiber and protein. It's really great for people that are vegan, vegetarian, plant-based, because, you know, this is primarily what their diet looks like. It's really important for these people to realize that actually there are anti-nutrients in these types of foods. These protective layers, these anti-nutrients, when we eat it, we actually are not able to assimilate a lot of the nutrients from it just because of this protective layer around it. So a way to combat that and really release those amazing nutrients from these types of foods is by soaking and sprouting. So when you're soaking, for example, beans, the act of soaking actually starts the germination process. So now these seeds that are dormant then becomes young plants. So when you actually create and start this germination process, you're actually kind of expelling or creating all of these nutrients that are within these seeds itself. So when you eat it, you're getting a lot more nutrients from them. So we're seeing, you know, a 30% increase in protein, over 100% in insoluble fiber, which is really, really important, especially as we age, because of diarrhea or constipation problems that we often see. So it really, really packs a punch in terms of really soaking and sprouting and increasing these nutrient densities in these foods.
So I've heard about soaking. I know that, you know, in Europe, we eat a lot of these beans and garbanzos and things like that. So you soak them overnight. Now you're going one step beyond. What do you mean by sprouting?
So you start the process by soaking first overnight, and that really starts the germination process. But you take that one step beyond that and you actually sprout it. So how you do it is just, you actually rinse it in water. And then you drain it, and you do that process maybe 2 to 3 times a day for about 2 to 7 days, depending on what you're trying to germinate and sprout. And then what you will get is the seed with a little tail at the back. So this is when you know that it has been sprouted, and when you know that this is really packed with the nutrients and it's become a small little plant with lots of nutrients and protein and fiber for you to uptake.
That's amazing. And that can be cooked like the recipe calls for.
Exactly. So one thing to really caution, though, for elderly people or anybody with a compromised immune system is that these sprouts are best to be eaten cooked. Sometimes people like to eat them raw, but it is because it is you germinating it, and it may be some bacterial buildup. So you really don't want to take that risk of getting some type of infection. So making sure that you're eating them cooked. You can, really cook them the way that you normally do. You can also make them into a paste, spread it on your sandwiches, crackers, vegetables. You can top them on top of your soups, making sure that they are cooked down first though, adding them to stews, really anything. It's so versatile, and it's really packed in such great nutrients.
There you go. How to eat well on a budget. There's no excuse not to eat well other than just perhaps the fear of cooking, right?
Yes, fear of cooking. But you know what? Cooking healthy can be so simple, and I know that everyone can do it.
Yeah, I'm learning how. So thank you, Jollia, for your good advice, and I look forward to more.
Absolutely.
When we come back, we talk fitness and exercise and why they're so important in our self-care journey.
Still ahead on CARPe Diem.
Whether you are an ex-athlete or whether you're somebody who wants to make the first start on your 60th birthday, we can get you going.
CARPe Diem. Seizing the day for Canadians as we age.
Welcome back. We know exercise is a must, especially as we age, but what kind? What does Dr. Amani recommend?
So you want to be moving your body. So the best exercise, because of its impact on our mind, because of its impact on getting us into what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, where our body heals and rests and restores itself, is the best movement is walking, right? So when we do studies, when we look at studies of centenarians all over the world, people who live over 100, they're walking, they're all walking. So that's the best because it has an improvement in your cardiovascular fitness, but it also has an improvement in your emotional, psychological wellness. It has a mindfulness impact. It has a parasympathetic nervous system optimizing impact.
Just move. What you're saying is just move and do something that makes you feel good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Outside of that kind of cardiovascular movement, it's really important to do stretching. So we teach quite a bit of stretching. So any movement like yoga, tai chi is really, really important, or just stretching at home. 10 to 15 minutes a day to start is fantastic. And then the third one is resistance training, right? So we want to be able to maintain and increase our muscle mass because we start losing it over the age of 40 and then specifically over 50. And muscle mass loss is connected to a lot of problems physically, particularly increasing the risk of diabetes, increasing the risk of pain and falls. And so we want to maintain that muscle mass. And oftentimes the best way of doing it is with your own body weight. So again, yoga is a fantastic way to doing it, or just light weights, 10 repetitions 3 times a day kind of thing.
As we age, we need to move and stretch. But why resistance training? Fitness expert Alex Ackerley explains.
If we're not supporting weight, if we're not supporting load and the body doesn't sense tension going on through our skeleton, then it's going to discard a lot of that calcium that we deposit over time to keep ourselves strong. So it's important that we don't stop carrying our own bags and taking the groceries all the way out to the car and throwing them in the back of the truck yourself, because those are the kind of things that are going to tell the skeleton that we need to keep that bone density up.
Makes perfect sense. And you said muscle mass. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that is and how do we build it?
Yeah, so the amount of muscle that we carry around with us is primarily dictated, again, use it or lose it, primarily dictated by how much we ask the body to produce it with things like exercises, picking up weights. So rather than just picking up a load and walking around, we want to be moving our joints under tension there. So think about things like bicep curls and squats again. That's going to tell the body that we want to build some more muscle around that joint. That becomes harder still as we get older. So it becomes even more important that we keep those exercises up as you get older.
What kind of simple exercises could we do to work on our bone density and our muscle mass?
So in terms of bone density, one of my favorite ones is just a farmer's carry or a suitcase carry. And in a big gym, we can stand up and we can walk around, carry things through the gym. But right now we don't all have the space for that. So one of the videos I shared here was just a static suitcase carry where you can hold something heavy. I think I've got a water bottle there. And I'm just marching on the spot. And that's really shifting the weight from one leg into the other. And that's sending the signal to my bones, particularly my big bones in my legs, that they need to stay strong for me. And I need to add some bone density there. And the second exercise was the sandbag bent over row. That was a piece of equipment that we've used a lot through COVID because people can make them at home. They're easy to pick up from a store. And that's an upper body strengthener. And it's an upper body strengthener, particularly for the back. And that's one of the most important spots to work on for us, because when we spend all our time sat in chairs, our back gets somewhat neglected, and keeping it strong is key for posture, as we mentioned earlier, and for functional strength.
And I'm looking at these videos, and they're very simple to do. I think anyone watching right now, save someone with special physical challenges, we could mostly all do this.
Yeah, I hope so. I chose ones that are simple. If you ever check out those videos on YouTube, you'll hear my dull voice explaining them in great detail so that hopefully people can do them correctly. And it's designed to be instructional and help people to understand how to do things safely.
Alex, what are your final thoughts for our viewers? What would you like to say to everyone watching you right now?
Well, I'd say that the biggest hurdle is getting going, and don't be afraid to get started. Everybody has to start somewhere. And when you work with an expert, when you work with somebody who knows what they're doing, my goal is to find out what your starting point is. And we can progress anybody, whether you are an ex-athlete or whether you're somebody who wants to make the first start on your 60th birthday. We can get you going and we can move you forward.
Alex, thank you so much for being with us and giving us some good healthy tips.
My pleasure, Carmen. Thanks for having me.
Exercise is crucial for the self-care of our bodies. When we come back, we talk self-care for the soul.
Still ahead on CARPe Diem.
It is a form of therapy. The forest just seems to give us the medicine or the gift that we need at that moment.
CARPe Diem. Seizing the day for Canadians as we age.
Welcome back. All our experts agree stress is damaging to our health. There's a new kind of activity, forest bathing, that's scientifically proven to boost our mind, body, and spirit. Videographer Leah Bolton went for a walk in the woods. Let's hear from her. Leah, I'm so excited to learn more about forest bathing through your video, but tell me a little bit more. Set it up for us.
Well, I didn't get to, there's two different experiences. You can go out there on your own, or you can have a guide like Haida, for example. So she's used to taking people into that experience and telling them to use their senses. It's supposed to be a big stress relief. So that's what I did. I went into the forest. I started hearing things from a different perspective, smelling things that I hadn't recognized before, seeing, touching. You're using all of these different sensory experiences to get away and de-stress. And it does really help. But again, we take it for granted. We go for a hike or something and the forest is there, but we really don't take it in.
Yeah. And so having experienced that with consciousness, do you think that that will be forever your new way of approaching your hikes in the forest?
Well, you're not supposed to hike. Hiking's different. Hiking, you're kind of getting to your destination. So you're missing all of that. So if you're going to go for a forest bathing experience, it's going to be different. You're going to take the time. You're going to just relax, and there's no goal of getting somewhere. So that's part of the de-stressing process.
Leah, you simplify something that has a lot of mysticism to it. I cannot wait to watch your story. Let's roll it.
As you can see, I'm on an adventure in the middle of the trees, exploring an experience called forest bathing. It's a Japanese form of nature therapy that is recognized as a stress reduction method.
There is a part of you which still feels at home in nature.
It is a form of therapy. The forest is the therapist. The forest has this magical way of knowing exactly what each individual needs by slowing down and really deeply connecting to the forest with our senses. The forest just seems to give us the medicine or the gift that we need at that moment. And it'll be different for you and different for me, even though most people get a great sense of calm and inner peace. But sometimes there's another gift that the forest has that's more specific to the individual.
Part of a successful forest bathing experience is ditching all of your technology, so leave the phones at home.
Forest bathing is a term that comes from the Japanese Shinjin-yoku. There's 4 scientists and medical professionals in Japan that were talking back at around 1982, and they were recognizing the problems that the city people were having with so much more anxiety and stress-related diseases and cancer, and then they started talking and realized, you know what, intuitively we know that there are health benefits to being in the forest, but where's the science? So they set out to design this practice of forest bathing and do the science to find out, well, what are the health benefits? Improved immune system, decreased stress hormones, improved blood pressure, better sleep. So many people have told me that they sleep so much better after doing a forest, even just one forest therapy walk.
Forest bathing is an immersion of the senses in the natural world. In Surrey, I'm Leah Bolton.
I'm hopeful that this episode has given you the motivation to take good care of yourself. Let's all enjoy our Zoomer years in good health. I want to thank my guests, Dr. Pawa, Dr. Amani, Jollia, Alex, and Leah. And if you'd like to see a conversation happen here, get in touch. And that's the show. Remember, as our CARPe president, Moses Neimer, always says, the best way to keep going is to keep going. So, carpe diem and seize your day.